A U.S. Federal Government World Trade Resource Guide. Chapter 1. Federal Government World Trade Resources. International Trade Administration has two websites, export.gov and trade.gov. Export.gov. Trade.gov. International Trade Administration. U.S. Department of Commerce. 1401 Constitution Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20230. Trade.gov/export-solutions. Trade.gov/virtual-services. Trade.gov/learn-how-export. Trade.gov/international-market-research. Trade.gov/network-and-learn-events. Trade.gov/find-buyers-and-partners. Trade.gov/e-commerce. Trade.gov/finance. Trade.gov/negotiate-export-sale. Trade.gov/navigate-shipping-and-logistics. Trade.gov/comply-us-and-foreign regulations. Trade.gov/perform-do-diligence. Trade.gov/protect-intellectual-property. Trade.gov/resolve-trade-problem. Trade.gov/research-center. Trade.gov/visual-data-center. Trade.gov/industries. Trade.gov/research-country. Trade.gov/research-region. Trade.gov/trade-data-analysis. Trade.gov/top-markets. Trade.gov/regulations. Trade.gov/us-export-regulations-0. Trade.gov/foreign-regulations. Trade.gov/trade-agreements. Trade.gov/resolve-foreign-trade-barrier. Trade.gov/us-anti-dumping-and-countervailing-duties. Trade.gov/foreign-ADCVD-or-safeguard-investigation. Trade.gov/fight-unfair-foreign-trade-subsidies. Trade.gov/IMAU. Stopfakes.gov/welcome. Trade.gov/meet-buyers-events. Trade.gov/trade-missions. Trade.gov/TEPP. SelectUSA.gov/events. Trade.gov/news-and-highlights. Trade.gov/tradeology-official-eta-blog. Trade.gov/success-stories. Trade.gov/let-our-experts-help-0. Trade.gov/introductory-services-exporters-plan-and-assess. Trade.gov/services-current-exporters. Trade.gov/let-our-experts-help. Trade.gov/rural. Trade.gov/foreign-trade-zones-board. Trade.gov/partner-eta. Trade.gov/buy-USA. LinkedIn.com/company/us-commercial-service. Twitter.com/exportgov. Trade.gov/trade-wins. Trade.gov/discover-global-markets. SelectUSA.gov. Twitter.com/tradegov. Facebook.com/tradegov. YouTube.com/tradegov. LinkedIn.com/company/international-trade-administration. Commerce.gov, a big U.S. business and world trade websites. Information mostly to sell American goods worldwide. The U.S. Federal Government Minority Business Development Agency. mbeta.gov. Twitter.com/USmbeta. YouTube.com/channel/UCC7TRM0VKKTMPXUCO7IYPZQ. Facebook.com/USmbeta. LinkedIn.com/groups?9411997%TRK=MyG_UGRP_OVR. Instagram.com/USmbeta. U.S. Export Assistance Centers. Office of Director General. Number 3804. U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. Department of Commerce. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-5777. 202-377-4767. export.gov/eac/index.asp. business.usa.gov. The 12 U.S. Export Assistance Centers are: Atlanta, 404-657-1900. Baltimore, 410-9662-4539. Chicago, 312-353-8040. Cleveland, 216-522-4750. Dallas, 214-767-0542. Denver, 303-844-6622. Long Beach, 310-980-4550. Miami, 305-526-7425. New York, 212-264-0635. Philadelphia, 215-597-6101. St. Louis, 314-425-3302. Seattle, 206-553-5615. Department of Commerce Regional Resource Centers. The U.S. Department of Commerce has specialty resource centers for business people interested in selling and/or investing in several places in the world. They are: Caribbean Business Development Center, U.S. Department of Commerce, Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-0841. Fax, 202-377-2218. Commerce.gov. Eastern European Business Development Center, U.S. Department of Commerce, Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-2645. Fax, 202-377-4473. Commerce.gov. Europe and the Mediterranean. Office of U.S. Trade Representative. 600 17th Street Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20506. 202-395-3211. Commerce.gov. Japan Export Information Center, U.S. Department of Commerce, Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-2425. Fax, 202-377-0469. Commerce.gov. Kuwait/Gulf Business Development Center, U.S. Department of Commerce, Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-5767. Fax, 202-377-0878. Commerce.gov. Chapter 2. U.S. Federal Agencies Involved in World Trade. U.S. Federal Agencies Involved in World Trade. Trade Information Center, U.S. Department of Commerce, 14th and Constitution Ave. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20230. 800 USA Trade. 800 TDD Trade, TDD. Fax, 202-377-4473. Fax, 202-482-4473. TIC at eda.commerce.gov. eda.commerce.government/TIC. The headquarters for information regarding doing business in foreign countries. Ask about how you can promote your products overseas, including video catalogs, trade fairs and trade/investment missions. Simply write them a letter and they will send you some useful startup information. The 800 USA Trade number is a fax retrieval service. If you have a fax machine, they can send info by fax. Free booklets. Export Program Guide, a business guide to federal export assistance programs. ABCs of exporting. Latin America/Caribbean Business Bulletin. U.S. Chamber of Commerce. World Division. 1615 H. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20062. 800-649-9719. 202-659-6000. 202-463-5460. 202-463-5330. Fax, 202-463-3173. uschamber.org. Can help with the names of world trade groups. Free booklet trade resources and foreign investment publications where they sell many good books about different countries. Get it? U.S. Department of Commerce. Bureau of Export Administration. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-482-4811. Fax, 202-482-3617. bxa.commerce.gov. Information about licenses for certain products. U.S. Department of Commerce. Office of Export Trading Co. Affairs. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-482-5131. Commerce.gov. Request free copy of Export Yellow Pages. U.S. Foreign and Commercial Services. Export Promotion Services. U.S. Department of Commerce. Number 2810. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-8220. Commerce.gov. The U.S. Department of Commerce employs trade experts on virtually every country in the world that can help you with information about exporting your products there. Bureau of Export Development. Industry and Trade Administration. U.S. Department of Commerce. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-5261. 202-377-4811. Commerce.gov. Agency for International Development. Trade and Investment Monitoring System. #100SA2. Washington, D.C. 20253-0229. 202-663-2660. Computer-based information about the state of markets in foreign countries. Bureau of Export Administration. Office of Export Licensing. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-4811. Help in the legal aspects of exporting products overseas. Export Info Hotline. 800-243-7232. Export Hotline. 800 USA Sport. Exportweb.com. Export Hotline and Trade Bank. 800 USA Sport. Exporthotline.com. Country Reports. National Technical Information Service. U.S. Department of Commerce. 5285 Port Royal Road. Springfield, Virginia 22161. 703-487-4650. They sell information about foreign markets. Ask about the free video describing what they do. NAFTA Info Line. 202-482-0305. Office of Business Relations. U.S. Agency for International Development. #1400 Estate Annex 14. Washington, D.C. 20523. 703-875-1551. Help for small businesses wanting to sell to developing nations. Office of International Economic Policy. International Trade Administration. U.S. Department of Commerce. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-3022. Commerce.gov. Help for business people seeking to sell products overseas. Office of Investment. Agency for International Development. 515 22nd Street Northwest. Number 301. Washington, D.C. 20523. 202-663-2280. Helps American companies invest in foreign countries. Office of the Executive Secretary. Foreign Trade Zones Board. 14th and Pennsylvania NW. Number 3716. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-377-2862. Foreign Trade Zones in the United States. Overseas Private Investment Corporation. 1100 New York Avenue, NW. Washington, D.C. 20527. 800-424-OPIC Hotline. 202-336-8400 General Information. 202-457-7128 Investment Information. OPIC.gov. Financial assistance, loans, and advice to American companies investing overseas. U.S. Council for International Business. 1212 Avenue of the Americas. NYC 10036. 212-354-4480. Fax, 212-575-0327. 800-5 Duty Free. U.S. DEPT of Commerce. 202-482-1986. Commerce.gov. Economic Bulletin Board. U.S. Department of Commerce. 800 USA Trade. Fax, 202-482-3875, Pacific Rim Hotline. U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. Department of Commerce. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-482-4811. 714-660-0144. U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. Department of Commerce. Mexico Trade Office. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-482-4464. 202-482-0300. Commerce.gov. U.S. Small Business Administration. Office of World Trade. 409 3rd Street Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20416. 202-205-6720. 800 USXPA. SBA.gov. Assistance to companies selling products overseas, free booklet, Exporter's Guide to Federal Resources for Small Businesses, Marketing Overseas with U.S. Government Help. U.S. Small Business Administration. Export Legal Assistance. 409 3rd Street Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20416. 202-778-3080. SBA.gov. Legal assistance about exporting overseas. U.S. Small Business Administration. Office of International Trade. 409 3rd Street Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20416. 202-205-7264. SBA.gov. Information about the state of markets in foreign countries. U.S. Trade Representative's Office. 600 17th Street Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20501. 202-482-3230. If you feel you've been the victim of unfair trade practices, report the fraud to them.